Okay guys, I apologize for any stream interruptions or bad connections we may get here, but as you see the title of this live video, as I'm doing this, I've got about 24 minutes before I have to go back in, or 34 if I add 10 minutes extra. But basically more news has dropped within the last half hour, and if not the past hour or a couple days. Apparently, first of all, the news that has happened over the past couple of days is there is a protest that's taking place tomorrow and Wednesday, but it's called Break the Internet. Now, nobody really knows what that means, but I think I got an idea, and it's basically probably similar to what happened before. It's called a blackout. In other words, the sites won't be like offline, but basically you'll see some signals or moments or little areas in there that'll be like completely restricted, or not restricted, but we be completely blacked out or something. I don't know what Break the Internet is, but my thought process is it's going to be along the lines of they're going to probably either do something similar to what they did a couple years ago, or they're going to overwhelm certain websites, if not the entire internet itself, and the servers are going to shut down, to kind of give an idea of what will happen if this net neutrality repeal passes. If this proposed plan to kill net neutrality passes. I'm guessing that's probably what the major plan, to kind of show what it will be like. And honestly, I don't blame anybody for doing this. I really don't, but we got to look at it this way. Even if this vote goes down, and a lot of people are saying there's a probability that it will, let's not forget everything that's going on. Everybody from Democrats, Republicans, Congress, independents, any members of Congress in the House of Representatives, and so on, that are against this idea are going to be standing up to it. In fact, Congress are planning, along with other people, companies and all that, to have a protest, a rally outside the FCC on the day of the vote. Now, Ajit Pai, I guess that's his last name, has pretty much come out and said, hey, nothing's going to budge us. Nothing's going to push us from delaying this vote or not doing this vote. Well, nothing may push them. Nothing may stop them from doing the vote. But it seems that they are getting pressured. They are getting pressured. And what I mean by getting pressured, I'm talking along the lines of, today, one of the news items that broke concerning net neutrality is the FCC and the FTC working together according to this new proposed plan that Pai and his people have. Basically, from what I've read on one of the sites that's talked about net neutrality the most, from what I've read, this plan is going to give the FTC some authority. Basically, from what I understand, this plan is to make sure ISP providers, that being Comcast, Verizon, Comcast, Verizon, Time Warner, CenturyLink, you name it, this agreement, or this plan that Pai and his colleagues have come up with, or some of his colleagues have come up with, is to basically put the authority of the into the hands of the FTC, and what that means is the FTC would be able to get at the providers for any misconduct they may do. Like if they don't keep the promises not to block or throttle consumers' connections, they can get at them. They can get at them for that. But here's the thing. If you read about this a little bit more, it basically also states, in a sense, as the person that reported this or put this article together reports, is it's still going to allow them, you know, part of this new promise, this new plan, is not only to make sure ISPs, providers, don't do, you know, don't miscontact, don't abuse the powers or whatever, and keep the promises, but basically this plan would allow them to still do such things in a sense, because all they would have to do not to break the law is to tell us what they're going to do. So in other words, if, let's say, Time Warner decides, oh, we don't like DeviantArt, we feel it's not appropriate, we're going to block it. If they just block it without telling you, then according to this plan, and you can look it up online if you want, I'll provide a link, you can look it up and interpret it yourself. This plan would allow the FTC to get at Time Warner for breaking the promise. Breaking the promise and basically blocking and throttling service. However, and if I read this correctly, even if that's true, the other part of that that's hypocritical in the eyes of many people that may read this is the fact that according to the plan, you know, they can't do a lot of this, you know, they can't throttle or block out or anything, but here's the thing. Just because they can't do that, just because this plan that they've come up with recently, or just recently, according to about 45 minutes ago, almost an hour ago, they came up with this, was announced. Not only would this plan allow them to, or make sure they keep their promises not to throttle or black out or block out, you know, connections or internet speeds to the consumers like me and you, but if they do it without telling us, then the FTC and maybe the FCC, if the FCC wants to get involved, can get at them, can get at the ISP providers and say, hey, you broke your promise, you broke the rules, we're going to get at you. Now we're going to, you know, we're going to punish you, do whatever. But yet, the hypocrisy about this is, the hypocrisy is, that could happen, but it may not happen, because part of the plan is that they could still, the ISP providers could still get away with it if they let us know. So if they email me, let's say Time Warner was to email me. I don't have Time Warner, I have Comcast. Xfinity, if you will. But if they were to contact me and say, we're going to block DeviantArt because we don't think it's a suitable site. If they inform me via email or by snail mail, you know, regular mail, that they were going to block that site, because I go to it probably a lot, then they wouldn't be doing anything wrong, because they have told me straightforward, hey, we're blocking this site. You know, same thing if they decide, hey, we don't like Amazon. You know, if CenturyLink says that we don't like Amazon, all they have to do to avoid being in trouble, avoid getting in trouble, is basically say, hey, Amazon, and hey, folks, we're going to be blocking Amazon now, so you don't get to see them anymore unless you maybe pay a charge or you get another provider. They wouldn't be breaking any laws if they did that. They wouldn't be. Instead, they'd be doing the right thing. But if they were to block Amazon, CenturyLink that is, without telling people, then they would be breaking, I guess, the law or the plan or whatever it is they came up with. So yeah, basically, Occupy, you know, Pi might say, hey, they're not going to be pressured into delaying the vote or keeping net neutrality by voting against the repeal. He said, you know, he may say they're not being budged, But if they're starting to come up with a plan like this, some kind of compromise, if you will, to make sure us consumers shut the heck up by saying, oh yeah, don't worry, you'll still be okay, and we're going to put in this new rule that states that, hey, that states your ISP providers can't do this and that, and where they have a promise and agreement to keep or whatever, or else we could get at them, or else we can punish them if they do. They think that's going to shut us up. It's not. Because a lot of people pretty much see through the fact that this new plan has a lot of holes in it. It does. But the silver lining in this is at least this plan that they've come up with shows that even though they may deny it, that a lot of the protests, a lot of the stuff that people have said, the protests, the evidence, the information stuff that people have brought to the forefront, acknowledging that net neutrality does not need to die and it needs to stay, and that what's going to happen here with this plan is wrong, is getting to Pi and his group. It is getting to him. It is getting to him and his fellow Republicans that want to vote for this. It is getting to him. Why would he come up with this plan, this compromise, in my opinion, and in this new little plan, if the pressure wasn't getting to him? It is. Because I'm thinking he's realizing, whether he still goes through with it or not, he's screwing up. Now, the only way he could really shut us up, and I mean really shut us up, is to ensure that if this plan is everything he says it is, this new plan that was announced today, if he says it's everything they say it is, then they better damn well follow through on it. And they better follow through on it all the way. They may not be just coming up and saying this because they want to shut us up. And you know what? The ISP providers, they better be prepared to keep their promises and to make sure they don't black out or throttle any websites of any kind. Because if they do, and even if they inform us that they're going to, there will be a crap storm heading their way from a variety of people, a variety of group of people, and they know it. A variety of group of people, and they know it. They know it's going to head their way if they say they're going to do something and they do it, they know they're going to get crapped on. They know they're going to get hit massively with a crap load of I can't even say it. I can't even say any more about what's going to happen, because it won't be pretty. Now, besides that, sorry for the interruption there, but like I said, moving on, this other silver lining, the other bright spot maybe we have to look at, is well, first of all, one of the things a lot of people bring up is how other countries are like with their internet. How Portugal, England, Mexico, all these places are with internet service, and how they have service packages and such. How they have service packages and such, but in a sense they also have some net neutrality mixed in. And a lot of us are worried that we're going to end up like that soon. Here's the thing. We have, according to what people have said online, from what the Humanist Report has said, and others have said, we have until certain dates. Now, if this plan that I mentioned earlier, I just mentioned, is supposed to help ISP providers keep their promises and their agreements up until the expiration dates, and they follow through on this plan, and then fine. Sorry for the wait, folks. But like I said, if they follow through on this plan and make sure the ISP providers don't do what a lot of us fear they're going to do, then fine. But besides that, we have to look at the silver lining, a silver lining that could expand into a great sunrise in the future. We have until certain dates within the next year or years after before anything can become official. You see, one thing that a lot of articles mention is that if this plan passes, what the internet would look like in a couple of years. And the reason they say that, the reason they paraphrase, the reason a lot of them mention a couple of years is because a lot of the agreements that were made that make sure net neutrality stays the way it is, even if it's for another year or so, with certain providers, with certain providers. Hold on for a sec. But like I said, like I was saying, the silver lining in all of this as well, the other silver lining that could become a great sunrise, is the fact that a lot of providers can't really do anything until the expirations, until the agreements, the promises, the agreements, until the agreements expire, the agreements they signed or agreed to when net neutrality was created. Basically, they can't do anything. They can't do anything until possibly these expirations are expired. Now, true, they can kind of subtly hint that something's going to change, or they could subtly show that something's going to change, or subtly demonstrate something's going to change, and that's okay. That's fine, as long as it's not the whole day, as long as they're not going all the way. Because if they go all the way, then you're pretty much kissing the internet goodbye right off the bat. But we have to remember that a lot of the agreements are in place up until, for Comcast, September of next year, maybe longer if they get an extension, or much longer if this plan doesn't pass. Time Warner and CenturyLink and AT&T, I think they all expire around 2019, late 2018. So, and I think even one expires in 2020. So we still have a lot of time before anything becomes reality. We really do. And again, if this plan that Pi is trying to propose, this new one that just came out today, if this plan that was just announced today, if that's a way of, like I say, settling us down and saying, hey, look, once this passes, you still won't have nothing to worry about, because we'll make sure your ISP providers don't break the agreements and all that until further notice, or until the time is right, or whatever. Again, he's wrong. He's wrong about that. But again, the other silver lining is we have a year, if not more, before a lot of this becomes a reality, before a lot of this really starts to settle in and become the norm of the internet. We pretty much know we have plenty of time, but I understand why we don't want to think that way right now. We want to make sure that we don't have to worry about this again. Pretty much the reason a lot of these protests, these demonstrations, these askings of, these demands of, delays for the vote and all that are taking place is pretty much a lot of us, from us common people to the Congress and politicians and communications people, we pretty much all know, that we don't want to have to go through this again. So if we put it to a stop right now and keep net neutrality alive, then we won't have to worry about this again, not for maybe a couple of years, if not another year. And we won't have to go through the whole court situation just to try to get this to stay. Even though some politicians, Congress people, Democrats, Republicans have said that even if it goes to court, there's a good chance we're going to win, because there's a lot of evidence that's being put against Ajit Pai's plan and Ajit Pai himself. You know, there's a lot of evidence that's out there that demonstrates or shows that this is the wrong way to go, and that here's why, and here's the evidence. So to me, even if this passes on Thursday, yes, it's bad. But the thing is, the silver lining is we still have a years or more, until this thing really starts to settle in and become reality. Because we got to look at it this way: within that within the next year or so, while the promises are still being kept in to make sure the internet's not screwed with, and possibly the last year of net neutrality officially being on the planet. Within this next year, while we're all waiting for the expiration to happen for Comcast and then maybe Time Warner and whoever, this whole thing's going to be in court and maybe be done. It will go into court and maybe be out of court with a decision we're going to love before that expiration happens. That's what we got to look at. We got to look at the fact that while this plan may pass, it doesn't become a reality until a lot of those expiration dates and agreements, those expiration dates on those agreements by those providers during net neutrality's run, are over. And I guarantee you that during that time, this is going to go to court, and just like before, if people are correct about this, it's going to end up with the same decision it was before, and that is and that will be that net neutrality will not go anywhere, and that Ajit Pai's plan to get rid of it is pretty much going to backfire. That's the truth. That is the truth. So we got to look at it this way. The silver lining is we're going to have about 10 to 11 months, maybe a year or two remaining on net neutrality if things don't go according to plan. That's the silver lining. At least we have about a year or more so to enjoy essentially free internet. But on the other side of things, the silver lining is it will end up in court during that time, and before some of the expiration dates expire, that's when a court decision will be handed down that will probably, most likely, go into favor of us and those that support net neutrality. So yeah, that's basically all I'm going to say right now on this more news on net neutrality deal. Yeah, apparently, like I said, about an hour ago, the news broke that this new plan has come out. I'll provide a link to it so you guys can check it out yourself. But the new plan basically is to make sure ISP providers keep their promises to not throttle or black out internet. And then the other news we got to look at as well is that even if this vote passes, this plan passes, we got to look at the fact that we have a little more than a year or more remaining with free internet, if you will, and the fact that it may remain free because within that time, while we're waiting for these expiration dates to happen, that's basically when the court decision, it'll be in court and maybe out of court with a decision that will be in our favor, because there's a lot of evidence being gathered up by communications people, by government officials, Congress people, Democrats, Republicans, anybody that has a foothold and a say, are gathering up the evidence that's necessary to show that what Ajit Pai wants to do is wrong and it's not necessary. I mean, heck, if you have someone pretty much in the FCC who's a Democrat saying, hey, look, something's not right here, something's fishy with all these, numerous signatures or communications or whatever that say, hey, go for repelling net neutrality. You know, when someone in your own cabinet or in your own group, even if the Democrat, smells something rotten in the air, then pretty much you know you're screwed. You pretty much know you've screwed up. And that's the evidence that could go against him. And like I said, that's the evidence that could go against Ajit Pai and his plan to repeal net neutrality, when you have the judge wanting to probably ask, okay, what is this about? What are we hearing about these false communications or false whatever? False signatures and stuff like that. What's going on? So there's a lot of evidence that's going to go against him. I mean, he'll go down probably in history as being the only FCC chairman to succeed in getting a plan going, but that plan ain't going to go anywhere soon. And within the year's time that it takes till these expiration dates expire, that's pretty much going to be the time when it goes to court, that there's a lot that when the decision drops, that decision is going to drop in the favor of those that pretty much are pointing out the wrongs of what's going on, pretty much pointing out the evidence necessary to stop this plan from happening. So I thought I'd just bring that along to you guys, let you know what's happening. I got to get back into work here, so thank you all for watching live. Comment down below. Thank you all for watching post live after it's been uploaded. Hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I will talk to you later. I got to get back into work. God bless. Take care. Oh, and sorry for the interruption earlier.